So welcome everybody to the 2021 Karuna Buddhist Vihara Katina. If you don't know what this is, you might be in the wrong room. No. But thankfully we all got to be together this year on Zoom. Hopefully the last year that we will have to do this by Zoom only, and hopefully soon we'll get to be all in person. But for now, just a few housekeeping reminders before we start the program. So on Zoom, you're probably already aware of how this works, but we just ask that you keep your microphone muted so that we can hear the monastics really well. And you're welcome to chant along during the chanting session, but do keep your microphone muted during that time. This program is also being recorded. So if you do not want your face on a recording, just feel free to keep your video off. It's probably not going to be recorded anyway, but yeah, feel free to do that. If you're having any challenges, please chat tech help. That is the smiling face of Kyle, and he can message you and help troubleshoot as needed. You can always leave and re-enter the meeting if you're having problems with your audio. Don't forget to turn your own volume up if you need to hear better. And there's also going to be a Q&A period toward the end. So as you have questions arise from the ceremony or from some of the wonderful Dhamma talks that we will be offered, feel free to chat those questions to me, to Olivia, host Q&A questions any point, and we'll be reading a selection of those towards the end. Okay, so we're going to first just huge thank you and welcome to Ayya Cittananda and Ayya Santussika for everything that they do. And this whole ceremony is offered to them and as gratitude from the community. Today, we're going to start out by the Ayya Santussika is going to be leading the actual ceremony, but before we get started, we're going to have her introduce the monastics who are able to be here either in person or online. And then we're going to move into some welcoming of the lay folks before we get into the ceremony talks and then Q&A at the end. So again, huge, deep thank you to the whole Karuna Buddhist Vihara lay community from around the world for their support. And I know that all of us are sending our love, gratitude, and just deep warmth and thank you to the Ayyas for sharing your wisdom. So thank you, Ayyas, and I'll pass it to Ayya Santussika to get started.
Thank you, Olivia. I want to welcome all of you, and we do want to introduce the other monastics that are here. And actually, Ayya Cittananda and I are going to do this together. And I thought that even though you probably know both of us, you may not know that Ayya Cittananda came to live with me about 6.5 years ago. And, you know, the Buddha really strongly encouraged that a bhikkhuni have at least one bhikkhuni sister to practice with and live with and work with. And we've been a great team, having a really meaningful and deep relationship through this 6.5 years. And of course, we're both extremely grateful for the support that everyone has given us. And in particular, the monastics who have come today have been incredibly, you know, good friends. And we want to let you know who they are. So first, I'm going to just mention how grateful I am that the sisters from Aloka Vihara are joining us. And Ayya Anandabodhi and I have been friends for some time now, since I went to England to live at Amravati and for a time. And you've been such an incredible support as a friend and as a senior monastic in our tradition, and all of your advice and help has been extraordinarily beneficial to us. So thank you for being here, Ayya.
Pleasure. It's truly a pleasure to be here today.
And next to Anandabodhi is Ayya Ahimsa, who's a little bit newer to our association, but we're so happy that it's been a few years already that you've been at Aloka Vihara, having come from Canada, and we're just really grateful you're here. Thank you. Definitely. And thank you for your humor. Humor goes a long way in the holy life, I gotta say. Okay. And then on this side of the room, we have Ayya Nyanika. She also lives at Aloka Vihara. She trained at Dhammadippa for a while before moving here. So we're happy to have you. Thank you for coming too. And this is Bhante Jayasara. And he trained with Bhante Gunaratsana, Bhante G, for about 5 years. And he's doing a little kind of tour in California, visiting different monasteries right now. So thank you for being here, Bhante.
Good to be here.
And we also want to introduce the monastics online. Venerable Nyaniko is joining us from Abhayagiri. I think I first met you when you were a layman coming to Abhayagiri, getting started on this path. And we're really happy you could join us. The plan was that he would come in person, but there were a whole bunch of reasons, I think, why it's better that he's at the monastery on Zoom. And we really appreciate it. Thank you, Ajahn. And I should mention that during those years, something must have happened, because now he's the abbot. And doing a good job of it too. So thank you for coming.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And then we want to introduce you to Ayya Dhammadipa. I don't know if she's there at the moment. There you are. Ayya Dhammadipa has been a friend for many years now, and we started talking about women's communities a long time ago, and look at us. She's starting a new community in Alexandria, Virginia. Dasanaya?
Yes,
Dasanaya Buddhist community. And it means for the purpose of seeing. So for the purpose of seeing the Dhamma. And we wish you well with that, Ayya. And thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ayya. Also wishing you well, you and I, Cittananda, well with KBV and your whole community.
Thank you.
Being an inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you. And then we also have with us Venerable Nisabho. He's starting a monastery in the Seattle area called Clear Mountain Monastery. And he's a great supporter of the Bhikkhuni Sangha. So thank you for being here, Bhante.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. And so now, Olivia, please go ahead.
Thank you for introducing us all, and thank you all monastics for being here. How lovely. I'm also going to introduce, we're not going to do video for everyone right away, but just want to acknowledge and introduce some of the lay supporters who made this year's Katina possible. And just so you if those folks who are new to this don't know, you really have to have both the lay community and the monastic community working and supporting each other. And so this year, offering the Katina is two lay folks, Linda and Jocelyn, who are both from Portland. We also have Dill and Shalini in the Bay Area. So the four of them together offered this year's Katina. Sarada and Dilhara are hosting the venue, and I think you see them there. Thank you so much for making this venue possible. Certainly wouldn't work right now in Boulder Creek where it's raining and there's mud and not the best Wi-Fi. So thank you everyone over there for making this real. And overseeing the entire technical operation, we have Val, really our technical extraordinaire. She's also on the KBV board, and operating the camera is Andy. And Andy, I think some of your family said hello from Mexico. And she has been the steward of to the Ayyas for the last several months, and we'll see what's in her future. On the tech support team, you see Kyle, and also Philip, who will speak to us at the end, is the treasurer of KBV, Karuna Buddhist Vihara. So thank you so much to all of the lay supporters. And now I'm going to introduce Jamila. He is the KBV Board President. Jamila has served on the board since 2012 in the founding of KBV, and he lives in the Bay Area and is a lifelong Buddhist. So welcome, Jamila.
Olivia, thank you. And hello, everyone. I want to echo all of the appreciation that Olivia, Ayya, Santussika, and Ayya Cittananda began by expressing. It's with an enormous sense of gratitude that I welcome you also to our 2021 Katina celebration. And I want to begin with a thank you, of course, for all your support from the Karuna Buddhist Vihara, from the Venerable Monastic Sangha, the lay community, and today's Katina organizers. I want to express my appreciation for fellow board members Val Leitner and Philip Chu, who work to support the monastic vision set forth by Ayya Santussika and Ayya Cittananda, who lead our board. But if you want to see who really moves the Vihara forward, please look in a mirror. It's all of your collective participation and kindness from donations and volunteer efforts that enable this diverse community to happen. I know there are lots of changes going on in all our lives, compounded by the global turmoil, of course. And I hope when you look in that mirror, you're kind to who you see. For myself, there have been many changes in my life. My daughter went off to college. It doesn't quite feel she left because she put a video camera and a microphone in our living room so she can see and hear everything that goes on. And out of nowhere, she often chimes in and participates in conversations. In other fun news, yesterday, I was fortunate to go to a wedding and see my cousin get married. It was a lovely ceremony. But then also just recently, I had a friend call to say they were getting divorced after 27 years. And interestingly, I couldn't tell who was more at peace, my cousin who just got married or my friend who's getting divorced. And unlike my daughter, who didn't quite let go of the idea of being at home, both my cousin and my friend really had a sense of clarity around stepping forward and letting go. And that's what I wanted to touch on today. At past events, I've had a chance to speak about kindness, habits, and even navigating uncertainty. And on a fun note, when people have asked me, can Buddhism be applied everywhere? Absolutely not. For example, a Buddhist email program would be a terrible, terrible idea. It wouldn't support attachments. But when it comes to moving forward, letting go and working with your attachments often go hand in hand. Ayya Satima, a Buddhist teacher and a wonderful community builder, passed away in 2020, and she kindly taught the following at a prior Katina. Look at the alphabet, B, C, D. In the beginning, you have B, birth. In the end, you have D, death. And what do you have in between? You have C, choice. And what I learned from her teaching was we're all gamblers. We're all gambling by betting how we use our time. And over time, I saw how those bets are heavily influenced by our attachments. Attachment is often an emotional bond, and two attachments, honing in on two attachments, which often work together, are an attachment to being right and attachment to being perfect. A colleague once shared, I don't want to be right, Jamila, I want to be effective. And there was a lot of wisdom in that observation. I've discovered making mistakes are not the same thing as repeating mistakes. Sometimes we need to move beyond being right, learn from decisions we're afraid to make, and learn from the ideas we're afraid to be open to in order to get to a direction worth taking. Being right has many masks, and the attachment to being perfect is in some ways a mask for being right. The pressure to be perfect is an enormous pressure to achieve something that oftentimes doesn't exist. We're often told from the time we're little that practice makes perfect. And a dear friend shared that they replaced that idea, practice makes perfect, with practice makes progress. And I loved it. Practice makes progress. So as we all live out our capital C, choice, please continue to be kind to yourself, identify how to discover and work with the attachments in your life, and enjoy the progress in your practice. Thank you all very much. Olivia, back to you.
Thank you. Love that. Thank you, Jamila. Now I'll be introducing Linda Ward. For those of you who don't know her, out of Portland, she's a regular attendee of the Ayya's teachings and a dear friend, and a strong supporter of KBV offering the Katina last year and this year. And she's been drawing nearer and nearer to the monastic community. So Linda will say a few words about what it means to offer Katina. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Olivia. It's such a joy to be part of this auspicious day. As leading up to today, I've been reflecting a lot on the wisdom of the interdependence between the Sangha and the laity that the Buddha set up. It's really quite a joyful thing to contemplate. It's easy to not consider that it might have been otherwise. And thinking about this interdependence, the ability to be in support of the Sangha is a great joy. It's this interdependence as a foundation that enables us all to draw near to those who have gone forth to wake up. So with that, today's Katina is a beautiful expression of that interdependence. It is beautiful to participate in this enduring tradition of offering the cloth, offering support to the Sangha that's endured since the time of the Buddha. And as was mentioned, this cannot be initiated by the monastics. This is initiated and offered by the lay people as we, cultivate the parami of generosity. And we can receive the generosity of the teachings of the Ayyas. As we know, the Buddha said, this is really the highest generosity, the sharing of the Dhamma. And I'm very grateful for the teaching of the Ayyas and really excited to see all of the plans to create a sustainable foundation for the future, for the benefit of all, that we can all continue to draw near and receive the benefit of the generosity of the Ayya's teachings. In recollecting and thinking about one of the Buddha's instructions to recollect our own good deeds, I have to say it's a particular joy to reflect on any good deeds done in support of the monastic Sangha, however small. I can still feel great joy in thinking about the particular care I took the first time I offered a meal, or this year having the privilege to visit Karuna Vihara and the Ayyas. And who knew that recollecting digging a trench could bring such happiness and generate such a wellspring of the Brahma Viharas. And today, in being part of this Katina. So as I really recollect and think about the preciousness of this interdependence that allows us to draw near, that allows us to be in support of those who have gone forth, it brings me great joy. It is an immeasurable gift. And I'm just really glad to be a part of this beautiful day and share it with the community. Thank you, Ayyas. Back to you, Olivia.
Yes, it's true. Digging a trench can be the greatest joy. Who knew? Donna is so powerful. And to talk a little more about that, I'm going to pass it over to Jocelyn. Jocelyn also lives in Portland and has been on the path for about 20 years and attending KBV for the past year or a little bit longer, I think. We've all been together on Zoom during this pandemic, and it's been lovely to get to know you, Jocelyn. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. As we have read in the Mangala Sutta, respect and humility, contentment and gratitude, and timely listening to the teaching, this is the highest blessing. I have respect, humility, contentment, and deep gratitude for Ayya Santussika and Ayya Cittananda's counsel and teaching of the Dhamma, and for their energy in creating a hermitage where they live, they train, and they welcome us. So I also have great joy in sharing with you that as of this morning, our community has offered $22,565. In this coming year, the Ayyas hope to create a much needed infrastructure for the Hermitage as a foundation for the future. They plan to acquire an additional water tank, a 5,000-gallon water tank, so that they can have capacity to support residents and guests through a summer season when the ground spring, their only water source, runs dry as it did this year. They have ordered a bridge for the upper leg of the creek, and they plan to put a bridge across the lower leg of the creek below the main house where the crossing rocks are quite slippery. They hope to finish clearing roads and kuti sites, including a place for an elder's kuti. And they hope to acquire a side-by-side utility vehicle for navigating the steep terrain on the property. They hope to investigate solar infrastructure to be a reliable energy source in the future. And if all goes as planned, they hope to build a third kuti for a new resident as the Hermitage grows. If you are moved, as I have been, by gratitude for the highest blessings, to make an offering to support the Ayyas as they create the Hermitage, you may visit KbV.org and choose donations. Click on PayPal Giving Fund so that the largest portion of your offering will make it to the Ayyas. Anumodana, we rejoice in your generosity. Thank you, Olivia.
Wonderful. If you haven't been to the Vihara, of course, ask first, bring food, and you might get the chance to walk around with two of the most happy and excited people you've ever met, scouting out those kuti sites. It's like, well, I won't say Disneyland because that's a lot of sensual pleasure, but something like that. So huge thanks again to everyone on the lay community side who helped support and make it possible for the Ayyas to continue their practice, to deepen in their wisdom, and then share it back with us. It's truly just this incredible, virtuous cycle of gratitude and giving. So thank you. And now Ayya Santussika is going to lead us through the Katina ceremony. And after that, we will have some beautiful Dhamma reflections. So please do remember to keep your microphones muted during this time, and feel free to add any questions to chat, message us as needed. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Olivia, and everyone for all those beautiful words and all of your efforts. It's been an amazing journey with KBV, and we're really grateful to all of you. So this part of the program is the official part, you might say. This is where we will first call the devas, and then we will receive the offerings. We'll be doing offering the refuges and the precepts, and Ayya Cittananda will lead that. And Andy will actually come from behind the camera to guide the, offer the voice for everyone. All of you at home and other people here will join in for the, and then after we do that, we'll pass the donors will pass the cloth that's being offered around for everyone to include their blessings, and then offer it to the Bhikkhuni Sangha, and we will have this short ceremony. I kind of like the fact that in Theravada Buddhism, the ceremonies are short and meaningful still. And we'll be reciting our parts in English so everyone can understand what goes into officially receiving the robe cloth.
So I'm going to chant, inviting all of the forces of goodness to come and witness this day and enjoy the beauty and generosity and sila ethics of the people who are connected with this Katina offering today, so that they can all take part. Samanta Chakravalisu Atvagachantu Devata Sadhamma Munirajasa Sunantu Sagamokadam Sage Kame Charupe Girisikaratate Chantali Kevimane Diperate Jagame Taruanagahane Gehawatumikete Umachayantu Deva Chala chala visameyaka gandabanaka Titanta santikeya munivara vachanam Sadhavome sumantu Buddha dasanakalo ayam badanta Dhamma savanakalo ayam badanta Sangha bhairapasanakalo ayam badanta.
Okay, so Andy will come forward. Let's change the thing. Okay, thank you. Yep, so as Olivia said, this is Andy, and she's been part of our community for a few months now, and she's hoping to ordain with us soon. So we'll see after she finishes university how it goes. But so she's going to be leading the 5 precepts, and everyone can join in at home if they like, but please make sure you're muted. And well, go ahead, Andy.
Mayang ayeti sarnena saha pancha silani yachama Titiyampi mayang ayeti sarnena saha pancha silani yachama Titiyampi mayang ayeti sarnena saha pancha silani yachama
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tisarana gamanang netitang.
Amai.
Panatipata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
Adinadana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Kame sumi chachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Kame sumi chachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from sexual misconduct.
Musavada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Power went out. I wonder if there's still battery in the camera though, and
The camera,
the
it seems like
TV's
it's
on
fine.
and stuff. Okay,
We can
great.
hear you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Just a second. We're having a storm.
Yeah,
It's okay.
they're still on. Okay.
Yeah, they're good. Okay. Okay, so, okay, I'm hearing myself. That's you? Okay, great. Okay, thanks, Sarada. Okay. Musavada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Musavada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from false and harmful speech.
Suramarya majjapamadhatana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami.
Suramarya majjapamadhatana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Imani pancha sikapadani silena sugating yanti silena boga sampada silena nibuting yanti tasma silang visodaye.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, everyone. So now we'll pass, the robe cloth will be passed as monastics chant Namo Tassa, and then when it's offered, we'll have the ceremony for receiving the cloth. tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Venerables, we present the Katina cloth and all the other offerings to the community. It will be good if the community would accept these offerings and spread the Katina for our long-term welfare and happiness. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So Venerables, this Katina cloth, together with the other offerings, has arisen for the community in the season appropriate for spreading the Katina. And in this season like this, the spreading of the Katina with the cloth arisen in this way has been allowed by the Blessed One for bhikkhunis who have completed the rain's residence. By this means, 5 things are proper for a community that desires them: going without taking leave, going without one's complete set of robes, a group meal, keeping robe cloth as long as is wanted, and any robe cloth arising there in the residence where they spent the rains will be theirs. Also, the robe season will be extended throughout the 4 months of the cold season. Now, does the community want the spreading of the Katina or not?
We want it, Venerable.
Venerables, the Blessed One has allowed the spreading of the Katina only by an individual, for he said, not otherwise than through the spreading by an individual is the Katina spread. Neither a community nor a group spreads the Katina. Through the concord of the community and the group, and through the spreading by the individual is the Katina of the community, the group, and the individual spread. Now, to whom do we give the Katina cloth to spread the Katina? To whoever has an old robe or a threadbare robe, or to whoever will strive and, finishing the making of the robe today without omitting any of the procedures, is capable of spreading the Katina.
Of those in residence at Karuna Buddhist Vihara, Venerable Cittananda is learned, one who remembers the Dhamma, who remembers the Vinaya, and who instructs, urges, rouses, and encourages her fellows in the holy life. Being the teacher of many, she is one who teaches and expounds to them. She is also capable of spreading the Katina without spoiling any of the disciplinary requirements. I think that this entire community wants to give this Katina cloth together with the other offerings to Venerable Cittananda, and that when the Katina is spread, the entire community will rightly give its approval. Is it pleasing to the community to give this Katina cloth together with the other offerings to Venerable Cittananda, or is it not?
It is pleasing, Venerable. If the giving of this Katina cloth, together with its accessories, to Venerable Cittananda, is pleasing to this entire community, then it should be given without regard to the order of receiving Rain's Retreat cloth. And for the Katina cloth, even if it were given by announcement, it would not be effective. So may the community make this transaction resolution. We now give it to Venerable Cittananda by means of a motion and seconding announcement that is irreversible and fit to stand.
Very good, Venerable.
Venerables, May the community listen to me. This Katina cloth has arisen for the community. If the community is ready, it should give this Katina cloth to Venerable Cittananda to spread the Katina. This is the motion. Venerables, may the community listen to me. This Katina cloth has arisen for the community. The community is giving this Katina cloth to Venerable Cittananda to spread the Katina. If the giving of this Katina cloth to Venerable Cittananda to spread the Katina is agreeable, then remain silent. She to whom it is not agreeable should speak. This Katina cloth is given by the community to Venerable Cittananda to spread the Katina. This is agreeable to the community, therefore it is silent. Thus do I hold it.
We're going to chant the Anamodana, rejoicing in the goodness and generosity of the donors of the Katina cloth and all of the requisites and donations that have been offered to the Karuna Buddhist Vihara. Kalena dinang ariye suhujupute sutadisu vipassana manatasa vipula hoti dakina ye tata hanumodanti veya vachankharanti va Nate nadapina onate vikunya sapagino tasmadate apativana chitto yatadinang mahapalam punyani paralokasmin patita honti paninanti.
Sabaroga vinimuto sabasanta bhavajito sabaveramati kanto nibuto chatavambhava sabityo vivachantu sabarogo vinasatu mate bhavatvantarayo sukhiti kayuko bhava abhivadanasiri sanicham uthapachayino chataro dhamma vadanti ayuvano sukham. And that concludes the official ceremony for offering the Katina cloth and accepting it and bestowing it onto our lovely Ayya Cittananda. And then she will spread the Katina. So after we finish here today, we will be heading off. The 5 of us will be sewing away and making the robe and then finishing before dawn. And Ayya Cittananda will be the recipient of that robe and say the appropriate things to spread the Katina. So thank you. And now we can head into the Dhamma Reflections portion of the day.
Sadhu, Ayya, thank you. We're now going to move to Arjun Yanukov, who has been a monastic for over 20 years in the Ajahn Chah tradition. Ajahn was trained by Ajahn Pasana and Ajahn Amaro at Abhayagiri Buddhist Monastery in Redwood Valley, also in Northern California. And he spent several years training and running monasteries in Thailand, and is now the abbot of Abhayagiri. Thank you, Ajahn.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, thank you. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. Wonderful to see everybody here. And also, it's nice to see that at Karuna Buddhist Vihara you're having a Katina ceremony, and it was also nice to see it done in English, and it had almost a sense of kind of like it was very formal, but yet still in English. It's just a little bit unusual to see it like that, but it had a nice energy to it. And also congratulations to Ayya Cittananda for receiving the Katina robe, being the recipient. And so Ayya Cittananda is the work nun at Karuna Buddhist Vihara. And so part of the theme, I guess something I could talk a little bit about is developing a craft and the importance of that for practice. But also backing up a little bit, when Anandabodhi was talking, I was reminded of the horrific fires that were on. They closed, I believe, 50 miles of Highway 50. And as you're all aware, Lokavihara is located on Highway 50 to Placerville. So I was wondering and hoping that the monastery didn't burn down. And we do this annual Yosemite trip here at Abhayagiri, where we take a what's called Sataha, the allowable 6-night leave during the Vasa period. And we do this monastic communal harmony building and wilderness training camping trip just outside of Yosemite. So, but then we weren't sure because of all the fires, and we were aware of the fires on Highway 50. And Highway 50 is normally the way we go to go on this trip. So we knew we weren't going to be able to go that way. And we normally stay in Inyo National Forest. It's right outside of Yosemite, and we stay at a place called Sawmill Campground. And it's up at 10,000 feet, and it's a wonderful place. It's up in Tioga Pass. And so we were all packed up and ready to go. And then the day before leaving, so we had all of our stuff ready and ready to be packed in the cars and ready to go. And then there was a notification put out statewide that all national forests were to be closed the next day. So we had to quickly decide what to do because we couldn't stay in any national forests. So Inyo National Forest closed. All the national forests statewide were closed just because the firefighters were stretched thin. They couldn't really look after any more fires, or if people did any more foolish things, or if any more people in campgrounds did things where their minds weren't so clear, and sparks went to the ground and lit another fire, then they wouldn't be able to handle that. So I do think it was a good move on their part, but we didn't know what we were going to do. So we were all packed up, but with nowhere to go. And so we found out, okay, all the national forests are closed, but Yosemite is a national park. So it turned out Yosemite itself was still open. And so we then went, and we couldn't go on Highway 50. So we had to go down to San Francisco and go Highway 120. But then we found out you need a special COVID pass to get through Yosemite, which we didn't have. And so then we had to go Highway 108 through the Sonora Pass and add yet another hour to our journey. And then we made it to sorry, actually, this was like a scouting trip. We did a scouting trip to make sure it was going to be possible. We had to go we had to go Highway 108. Then we were able to make it to the back entrance of Yosemite and kind of check to see if our sawmill campground was open or not. Then on the return, we ended up staying on this scouting trip just for a couple days. And then on the return, we decided we could get a pass through Yosemite. We found out we could get like this special COVID pass just to pass through and not stop or not like stay for very long. And so we were able to go back on Highway 20. And then we saw this like mushroom cloud of smoke in the distance. And we looked it up. We looked it up, what was happening. Was there any new fires nearby? And it turned out there was suddenly a new fire on Highway 108, the way we had come. So if we would have tried to go back the same way that we came, we would have run into another road closure. So we both went and returned the only open, the only route that was open to us. So anyway, that was, it's just that trying to work around these forest fires is pretty tricky sometimes. And it's a very real danger. So that was a bit of a digression, but I was going to talk a little bit about developing a craft, because Ayya Cittananda and Ayya Santussika as well are learning a lot about living out in the forest, trying to start this hermitage. And they're a little bit becoming like homesteaders, in that you have to be a jack of all trades to look after a place like the place that they have in the Redwoods. These places, these forest monasteries, we love being in the forest and they're very remote, but then we have to look after things ourselves because sometimes they're so far away, people can't come out to fix the water pipes or, you know, do what needs to be done. Sometimes we just have to do it ourselves. So you develop those skills. But because of that energy being put forward, or that effort, that perseverance that is developed, then there is that sense, there can be a sense of joy and delight in looking after things, because anything, when we put our heart into it, then it becomes delightful. It becomes a delightful activity. When we put our heart into everything we do, for example, looking after water pipes when they break, or toilets when they don't work, or just developing the grounds of the monastery. And it seems that Ayya Santussika and Ayya Cittananda are very influenced by Abhayagiri. There was a mention there by Jocelyn of getting a side-by-side off-road vehicle. So that's very Abhayagiri. So, and also many other things that she mentioned seemed very Abhayagiri-like. So that's Ayya Santussika has that long-term connection with Abhayagiri. I've known Ayya Santussika for a long time, as she mentioned. She knew me as a layman, I think, and also in 2008, when her son was still a monk, and she was in Anagarika, she drove us across Canada, or at least partly across Canada. And that was quite a memorable trip. And also Ayya Cittananda has had a long-term connection with the Abhayagiri. She was a nurse or something in Redwood Valley for quite some time, and she was frequenting the monastery here. And So we have this, it is very much like extended family. So in terms of putting our heart into things, developing a craft, when we develop that sense of looking after things well, doing a good job, and I'm sure they're going to do a good job on the robe as well, then that inevitably goes into the meditation as well. So when we put our heart into things, when we focus on whatever activity we're doing, then we end up having that same attitude toward the meditation. So it's such an important thing to develop that sense of putting our heart into things. And also, just to end with putting in a plug for Modita as a quality to develop. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, is that quality of Modita. We hear a lot about metta and karuna, but Modita can be a very significant thing to cultivate, especially on Katina Day. And Modita is a quality that is translated as sympathetic joy. I think it's more like, because it comes from the root mudu, which is gentle. So it's like a gentle rejoicing quality. Sometimes I just think of it as rejoicing, or even gratitude would be a possible translation for Modita. And Modita is said to overcome, each of the Brahmaviharas overcomes a certain negative quality. And Modita is said to overcome resentment, which is also worthy of note, I think. So anyway, wonderful to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Ajahn. I'm now going to introduce Bhante Jayasara. So Bhante J.
This actually brings up something I wanted to mention. When I was listening and watching Ayya Anandabodhi give her talk, and this was happening, a poem came to my mind that I used to have at my desk at work when I worked Child Protective Services as a layperson. And it's by Ella Wheeler Wilcox from the 1800s. And it goes something like, or at least part of it that I remember goes something like this. It's easy enough to be happy when everything goes along like a song, but the one worthwhile is the one who can smile when everything goes all wrong. And I just watched Ayya Anandabodhi give this beautiful smile. Even through the mask, I could see the smile and just like enjoying the chaos of everything that was happening. So I really appreciated that. Okay, friends, we start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, friends, so on the topic of building a foundation, or as I like to say, setting the groundwork, I wanted to give a sutta as where the Buddha gives us a technique on how to practice with our mind. Right, so my topic, what I want to talk about setting the foundation for, setting the groundwork for, is setting the groundwork of developing a skillful mind. Right, there's a wonderful sutta called Dvayavataka Sutta. It's Majjhima Nikaya number 19. And in it, we get one of the few places where the Buddha is, where we get one of the few places where the Buddha is talking about a practice that he did before he became a Buddha, right, before he became awakened. And he talks about how he decided one day to observe the thoughts that arose in his mind. And there were thoughts of ill will, thoughts of greed, thoughts of harmfulness, right? And there was thoughts of non-ill will, thoughts of non-greed, thoughts of harmlessness. So he decided that he would observe his thoughts in these two categories. So he's observed when a skillful thought, when a thought of letting go, a thought of metta, of goodwill, a thought of harmlessness arose. He watched that thought in his mind, But this is a very practical, pragmatic thing. You can do this, right? Anytime, whether you're sitting, walking, driving, whatever you're doing, you can observe, oh, this thought has arisen in my mind. And he then observes and he says, will this thought lead to my harm and the harm of others? It's a very unskillful thought. It will lead to my harm and the harm of others. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to abandon it, right? Not feed it, not give it energy, right? You know, a thought arises, you know, an angry thought about a coworker or somebody, that blankety blank, and then you're like, yeah, exactly. You're agreeing with your mind. Yeah, so I'm happy that this arose. I agree with this, right? So that's what you don't want to do, right? Because you want to develop and build the foundation for a skillful, peaceful mind, right? But then the Buddha observes, oh, I see a very wonderful thought of peace and metta and letting go and harmlessness arise. And the Buddha says, I could dwell with this thought for a day and a night and no harm would come from it. Right? So observing this. And then the Buddha says something that I don't know in Sri Lanka, if in schools, if they have this, but here in America, like most schools, you go in, you'll see something like what the Buddha said 2,600 years ago. The Buddha says, that which a person frequently ponders on becomes the inclination of their mind. What you think, you become, basically, right? So the Buddha is encouraging us to reflect on these thoughts that arise and how we choose to accept those thoughts and to build those thoughts up and to feed those thoughts determines how our mind will be. Right? So this is something that when I first read this in the suttas, probably about 12, 13 years ago when I first read this, and I said, oh, right here, this sutta, the Buddha gives us a technique to practice. And I started right then and there to practice that, to observe my mind, right? And this is something that we can all do. This is what I love about the Buddha's teaching in the early texts. It's so practical and pragmatic, right? All of us, I encourage you all, and I offer this teaching of the Buddha today for us to practice, because it's not complicated. You don't have to worry about all kinds of things. All you have to do is just worry about watching what arises in your mind and reflecting. Is this going to help? Is this going to be of benefit to myself and others? Or is it going to be harmful to myself and others? Right? And if it's harmful, then just abandon, right? The Buddha doesn't say get angry and push it away and say, oh, I shouldn't have these thoughts in my mind, right? So we're not suppressing or repressing, but we are observing that it's there. So if you get angry, like if you become a meditator, if you become a meditator for many years and you realize a thought of anger arises, and then you say, okay, if I follow this thought, if this thought of anger leads to, comes out of my speech and my body, nothing good is going to come of it. This person, said something that triggered anger in my mind, and now I want to, punch them or curse them out or something like that. No good's going to come of that. Right? That's this part of this practice, to observe and to understand the mind, what is arising in the mind, and then to know this is skillful, and I want to build this up. This is unskillful, and I don't want to feed this. Right? I don't want this to be, so you are like a farmer. You're sowing the seeds, right? You're developing, or you're a builder. You're starting with a good, solid foundation to build a mind of skillfulness, right? A mind with that less and less as you practice this, less and less as you recognize, right? I had, when I started doing this, I had an image come to my mind of like unskillful thoughts. In the suttas, we call that Mara, right? Mara, oftentimes when Mara is seen, Mara goes away. Like you see, like in the Tarigata, the verses of the elder bhikkhunis, many times Mara will come and Mara will say something, and the bhikkhuni will say, "I see you, Mara," and then it says, "Mara went away dejectedly." Right? And so like that's this unskillfulness in our mind, right? If you sometimes, most of the times, if you just observe it, if you recognize it, it'll go away. It'll come back later and it'll try to attack from another direction. But at least for that one time, you're able to watch your mind, right? And to see, okay, this is unskillful. I see you, Mara. I'm not gonna feed this. I'm not gonna go along with this. I'm gonna abandon it. So once more time, it's Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length sayings number 19, two kinds of thought. If you just Google like Buddha Sutta, two kinds of thought in Google, that should come up. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante. And I know she seems like she doesn't need an introduction, but we're still going to do it. Ayya Santussika, founder and abbess of Karuna Buddhist Vihara, which is in Boulder Creek, California, in the Santa Cruz Mountains, has been a monastic for over 15 years, training in large and small communities of nuns, including in Amaravati and Chithurst, and in the Ajahn Chah tradition. Ayya, thank you so much, and thank you all for sharing the Dhamma today with us. We are very grateful.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. I like how many times we've heard that today. You know, that homage to the Buddha. I mean, that's really where our foundation is. And I feel so grateful for everyone here, everyone's participation, and everyone out there. And it's interesting to me how people find all different kinds of ways to be involved with the hermitage and with monastic centers, and it's really sweet. It's sweet and it's enjoyable to see. You know, there are some people who really love coming to the teachings, and other people come and bring food, and people come and work, and people come to talk, and people come to or write in or call to share what's going on in their lives, and it's community. And as Anandabodhi said, that's really what a monastery is. It's a community. It's people coming together, and coming together with something the Buddha talked about as the noble aspiration, or the noble commitment to awaken. And this noble intention is what binds us, and it's what supports us. He said it's like the ridge pole, the top part of the peak of the building. It holds everything else together. And he said, as long as we're doing that and we're supporting each other in that, we're going to make progress. We follow the teachings, and it's been nice to hear the different methods and encouragement today for how to practice. And of course, the suttas are just filled with this incredible advice from the Buddha. It's amazing how he just covers every different aspect of human experience and continually points in the direction of peace and happiness. and is so consistent about what he says and about the way he lived. It's wonderful to look at the early Buddhist texts and see the Buddha in so many different situations where he would talk to different kinds of people, and always with that in mind of how to help people move in the right direction. That idea that Jamila brought up. It's not about perfection, it's progress. And that's what we're all engaged in, and supporting each other in that progress, in that movement that has so many beautiful benefits and blessings in it. And we couldn't do this without everyone's help. And Ayya Cittananda and I often talk about all of our teachers, our friends, our monastic friends, our lay friends, the people who have been so integral to the development on the path and with the Hermitage or with KBV. One day when we were sitting eating out of our alms bowls, and I glanced over and I saw Ayya Cittananda, and I saw a tear fall into her bowl. And I kind of said, are you okay? And she said, yes, I'm just so grateful. So grateful for Ajahn Pasano and Ajahn Amaro and the Siladhara nuns who came to America, and all of the disciples of Ajahn Chah, and all of the good practice and bringing the teachings to the West. And she said if it weren't for them, we wouldn't be able to eat. And that's how it feels. I mean, when you take up the monastic life and you decide that everything that you need is, you just, either it's offered or you just do without, there is so much gratitude, so much mudita, so much blessing in every way. And more as I think all of us, as we walk this path, we see that, we feel the benefits for ourselves and in our own lives. We see the development and the benefit in one another. And we recognize that this life is really for that growth of our own heart and to be of service to others, to be a support, a point of foundation for people as they also follow the path. And it's beneficial in all directions, because of that foundation of the Buddha and the people who have carried his teachings down through these millennia, and the people who are still doing, practicing in this way and having this aspiration, this determination to awaken. It's just blessings in all directions. And that's what we're celebrating today. So it's, I hope you find something inspiring in what you've heard today. And I know I have, and I am inspired by, this whole community and, like our lovely tech people and Olivia and the donors of this Katina and making this happen, and all of Sarada and Dilhara and Shalini and Dil and everyone here, friends and family, and really, really humbled and impressed and grateful for what comes when we come together and do something with that kind of good heart and pure intention. I'm looking around at the bhikkhunis here and Bhante who joined us, and the venerables online and the lay people here who, we look forward to doing this, of course, after COVID kind of settles down and we can all come together again. It's always so nice to to be together. But we also appreciate the blessings that have come from this very odd kind of time of being apart and using this technology. So we have people that join us from the other side of the world, and this is also a great blessing. So I think that we'll just pause there and see if you have any questions or comments. I always feel like that's my favorite part of things, hearing from all of you. Thank you.
I have a question here. Can I ask a question from here? What is spreading the Katina? What do you mean by that?
So Deborah's here and she's asking, what does it mean to spread the Katina? And that's a language that comes out of the Vinaya, the monastic code. And it means this one person. It's not like you give the cloth just goes to everyone. It's this one person who actually performs these certain duties that cause the Katina to be spread. Now, a Katina actually is, and I might get some help from my sisters here, but the Katina is actually the loom or the form on which the cloth is made, or the robe is made. And this is...
It's like quilting.
It's like quilting. These robes are in this paddy field kind of pattern. And this spreading of the Katina has, as you kind of could hear in the language of the form, has some of these benefits. Or the Buddha said, when you as a community have lived together for these 3 months, and you've shared the Dhamma and you've kept the rain residents in the proper way, and then requisites come to you, robe cloth, then you can take this time to put a few kind of bonus options in place. and to actually get together, and one of the things that we're required to do is make the robe before the next day. And that's what it means when you finish those duties, you've spread the Katina. And then there are the benefits that come from it that are actually also in many ways communal. And it's not just like, oh, it just kind of goes to the whole group. It's like one person has the responsibility. And isn't that the way it is? When we're living in community and we have a lot of different activities going on, you just can't kind of just expect it to just happen without organizing. You have one person in charge of this and another person is responsible for that. And so she's responsible for the things being done in the proper way, and she receives the robe that we make.
Thank you.
Does that sound accurate? They're not going to complain. We'll talk about it later. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. And everyone online, you're welcome to send your questions over chat. You can send them to the Q&A questions participant, that's me, chat me, and I will be reading them. I won't read folks' names, and I can direct them to a particular monastic if there's someone you would like to answer specifically. They can be about the ceremony, the Dhamma talks, other things. Yeah, so we have a question here about the receiving the cloth. The question is, can only one monastic receive the cloth per year? Maybe pointing out that the cloth was offered to Ayya Cittananda.
Yeah, but she would share it with others. So one robe gets made today, before tomorrow morning. But the cloth also is shared with others, and cloth can continue to come and be used by other people. But it's kind of a special thing to be receiving the robe that's made at the Katina. And whenever you wear it, you feel that. This was made by our group, by the sisters. And it's like, and you're given the robe because, first of all, you might need a robe because your robe's worn, but also because you're doing a good job as a monastic.
Thank you. We have a question about a theme this year for Vasa KBV. Was there one other than hard work and steady practice?
Just the general supporting of the Sangha.
I think our official theme that we have pasted places online is building a sustainable foundation. And so it's the infrastructure at the Hermitage, but also our own sort of spiritual infrastructure as well. So we had some nice Dhamma from the Venerables here today around that topic. And that was basically it.
Thank you, Ayya. We have a question about kind of comparing, and I might say this incorrectly, but Paba versus Katina. Can we speak to the differences, similarities between the two ceremonies?
Ajahn Nyaniko, would you talk about this?
Yeah, sure. And I can touch on the spreading of the Katina too. We studied this in our Vinaya classes this year, during which we always do during the Vasa period. Well, my understanding is Paba is kind of like a faux Katina. So like if you want to have a Katina that's not a Katina, then you have a Paba. And so you can have a Paba during the Vasa, for example, whereas you would have to wait till after the end of the Vasa to have a Katina. Also, if you can't get the requisite number of monastics together, which is 5, then say in your case, bhikkhunis together, then you would have but the lay people might still be interested in doing some sort of offering ceremony, so they could do a Paba, but then it wouldn't be an official Katina. So for a Katina, there's the official offering of the Katina, which takes 5 monastics to perform, bhikkhus or bhikkhunis. And then there's the spreading of the Katina, which only needs to be spread, which is spread by 1, which in this case is Ayya Cittananda, once the robe is finished. So the spreading of the Katina would actually happen much later. Depending on how long this Q&A session goes on, it could be 10 p.m. or it could be 2 a.m. when they finish sewing the robe. So then she actually does, they might do it in English, they might do it in Pali. Here we do it in Pali, where you'd say like, Imang Katina Dusang Atarami, with this Katina cloth, I spread the Katina. And then you would determine, here we would make a lower robe or a sabong out of the Katina cloth, because that's the smallest robe and the quickest to make. And the recipient would then say, I determine this, they would say in Pali, I determine this Katina robe. So, and then they ask for validation for the spreading of the Katina. So they say, here as monks, we would chant Atatang Bhante Sangha Sa Katinang Dhammiko Katina Taro Anumo Dhamma. And so say if I received the Katina cloth, and then I would chant that, and then only one other bhikkhu, in my case, say would need to acknowledge that. So it only takes 2 actually to spread a Katina. You don't need the 5 there. They can all leave. They can go to sleep or whatever. They don't need to be up for that if it gets finished really late. But there needs to be at least one other person that acknowledges that spreading of the Katina. So there's the one who spreads the Katina, i.e. the recipient, and then there's the one who acknowledges it. But as in our communities, the tradition has grown up where the whole community is there and the whole community gives their acknowledgement for spreading the Katina. So, so it's quite a nice ceremony. Yeah. So anyway, that's two answers to one question, I guess.
Thank you, Ajahn. Another robe question. This person noted that robes used to be patched together. Like there's several suttas about this, right? Taking scraps of robes. And so they're wondering today, when robes wear out, what happens to them? Do they still get patched together?
Do you want to talk about this?
Oh, me?
Oh, sure.
No, it's okay. Someone else can.
So in the old days, the robes would be made out of lots of scraps of cloth. Often things that were bits of cloth that would be found on the street, or even taken from corpses and washed and dyed and made into robes as a contemplation. And so we can't really show you very well, but the robes are always, in every Buddhist tradition, the robes are, part of the robes will have this paddy field pattern, and that's in the similar shaping of a rice paddy field. So you've got the big square, and then you've got strips around that. So it's like the field and then the path that goes around the field. So all Buddhist traditions have that in their robes somewhere. And so in the old days, that would have been lots of bits of cloth stripped, sewn together. And there may well be people who are still doing that. What we generally do is sew the seams of those paddy fields in, so we don't cut it all up and then re-sew it, but we take a piece of cloth and then we measure it and so on, and sew that pattern into the robe. And then when the robe is old, and no longer useful as a robe, you can undetermine it. So when we have a robe, we determine this is my robe, this is my robe. When it's done, you can undetermine it, and it can be, you can use it for cleaning the floor, you can use it for whatever's needed. It's no longer a robe. So I hope that answers your question.
Great. This is a bit open-ended, and so anyone can take this. And this person's asking, sort of, was there a relevant theme, some specific thing that came up in your personal practice during this Vasa period that you'd like to share with the group?
Should we just go around the room? The theme in your practice, Ayya? Are you willing?
Sure.
Okay.
I think it was because it was close to me. I think. Anyway.
Let us know if you need some change with the sound.
Is that all right? Can you hear? Yeah. I would say the theme, the fire came through, like right in the middle of the Vasa for us that live at a local vihara. And so I think there was very much a theme of letting go, being with, facing things as directly and honestly as possible, being held, with it was actually very rich. There was very much, for me personally, some experiences of I think touching into things even more honestly and more directly than than I have been able to in the past, and yet having resources both internally and communally to support that. And going back to the physical location of the vihara after the fire, that theme was continually presented over and over. I think that's something that, it's like been grist for the mill. Yeah, very, very wonderful, rich Vasa time.
Yeah. Yeah, having the Caldor fire sweep through was quite a teaching. So for me, the forest is always like a Dhamma teacher. It's always teaching the Dhamma all the time. And this was just a very powerful teaching on how there really is nothing that we can hold on to. And the peace that comes with aligning one's heart with that reality. So I think, if anything, I would say the sort of, for me, this Vasa, things have been distilled down to wisdom and love. Those are the two things that keep coming up as a pair. And I think that going through that experience with the fire, and for quite some time not really knowing, is there going to be another vihara? Maybe the whole thing could burn down. It did burn 2 outbuildings and most of the forest, but the actual vihara itself is untouched by fire, which is wonderful. And so, yeah, just really recognizing like, oh, so this may be, we may never see this again, actually, while leaving it. This may be the last time I see this place, the last time I see this tree, the last time I see this deer with her little twins, and just really taking that in, and it just brought the teaching very deeply in. It's like, yeah, and this body too, it's gonna let it go. And for me, what that brought up was the places in my heart that are not open, that are holding old grudges or resentments, or and so it kind of it highlighted the limitations or the places where the heart is limited, and a real wish to open that up and to really cultivate kindness and love, and to see the places where love is already being expressed by many people and who may not think of it as love. So like Sila, for example, like listening to the process of the 5 precepts, Andy taking the precepts, even though Andy actually keeps it 8, but Andy taking the 5 precepts. To me, I'm listening to that and I'm hearing this is an act of love. I undertake the precept to refrain from killing any living being. This is an act of love. So I think there are many, many ways that we are expressing love that we don't think of it in that way, and we maybe overlook it a little bit. But yeah, for me that was what really, it was like, come on, get on with it. Stop. Don't just let those obscurations of heart be there and believe the story, but transform that. So that's kind of my work. It's not going to finish with the end of the lesson.
It's beautiful, both of you. Thank you. This Vasa was very busy for us in terms of building. So last year's Katina, we talked about wanting to put in a bathroom and laundry room because we want to be able to, support having more guests. One bathroom is a certain kind of gating factor for how many people can be comfortable in the area. And so that was happening, and building a first kuti, and Cittananda did almost all of the interior work on that, along with volunteers who would come and go inside of the kuti. It's beautiful. And there were 1,000 details, and there are all these loose ends that you have to
pick up and put together and think ahead on and all these things, and in addition to teachings and everything else that's normal in our schedule. And you know, so I really got to reflect on and continue to practice with one, you know, working with the mind as it tries to let go of, you know, put things down. And, you know, this is such a theme in so many lives of our lives these days, that there's so much activity and input and, you know, learning how to put things down. And also just really taking a kind of delight. I think Ajahn Nyaniko talked about it a little bit, you know, taking delight in what we're doing and putting the heart into it. And knowing that there are going to be mistakes and that mistakes are okay. You know, like just kind of like riding the waves of all that stuff and seeing the Dhamma and the practice as the solid stake in the ground that you can, you know, put your hand on and stay steady. So I'd say that's the theme for me.
I had a pretty happy Vasa, actually. I had a lot of like gratitude and joy arising, as I Santussika mentioned, and finishing the kuti was like, it was a lot of fun for me because I was thinking about all the people I want to come stay in the kuti now. I'm staying in it right now, but it's sort of near the cabin, and it's a nice spot for someone who's wanting to be near the bathroom at night, or someone who's afraid of the woods or something like that. So it was a happy time for me, just thinking about it while I'm working on the wood and stuff in there. And it was a lot of letting go too, when things wouldn't go the way I would want them to, and just keeping myself happy, thinking about the good parts of, oh, other people are gonna stay, yay. So that was nice. I think I had several weeks of like being grateful for everything. I just look around at the beautiful forest, and very grateful for my teacher and my Bhikkhuni sisters and my Bhikkhu brothers, also really feeling the support of the lay community, and just a lot of gratitude for the Bhikkhunis of the Buddha's time as well. We spent a lot of time reading the Therigatha with our guests this Vasa, and that was good reflection. Yeah, so I did feel worried about our sisters with the fire too. that came up several times, and with our lack of water. And then again with the gratitude arising because their monastery was basically saved, and we'll be fine with the water. This lovely storm that keeps interrupting the program is probably pretty good for us actually. So yeah, a lot of cause for joy for me this time.
Yeah.
We last year did the first half of the Buddha's teaching on social and communal harmony from Bhikkhu Bodhi's anthology collection, which led from Right View into Good Friends, which was a great place to start this Vasa. And then this Vasa, we went through the second part through a lot of things on feedback, intentional community, disputes, and then equitable society. And one thing that was clear to me was, as we evacuated, that aloka vihara in that case, and I think it would be the same for KBV, it's really supported to be on a property and have land and have, you know, kutis and things. But the practice is the community that we're practicing with. And so letting go of some of the tangible supports and just letting be with what supports were arising in the practice and in the real world, for the practical, it's all real in some unreal way. The practicalities of it arose, the support arose. But what didn't change was the practice continued. And there was this depth of honesty, this depth of acknowledgement, this depth of seeing things as they were, and this depth of letting go. And so worth doing it. As Anandabodhi is saying, you know, it doesn't stop at the end of Asa. It's something that we also looked at it from an aspect of social justice. So it wasn't just the individual cultivation, but also how is it meeting the world? How is it the interdependence with the fire? You just completely saw this is not just a practice that impacts my own heart. It's all our hearts impacting each other. It's all our actions impacting each other. You know, the fire came from causes. It continued through causes. It eventually went out through causes. And it's the same with our practice. So seeing that interconnection, and then we had a lot of questions around social justice about that interconnection and how we can show up as Buddhists in a wholesome way with that.
So I suppose for me, my main theme of actually the last couple of years, really, it's been a big theme. Maybe about 3 years ago, I realized for the first time, even though the Buddha talks about this in the suttas all the time, but I realized really personally, like, I can't actually become awakened by myself. Like, I actually need good Kalyanamitas. Right? And the Buddha says that there's, you know, what is like the sun is the forerunner of the dawn. What is the forerunner of becoming awakened? Good friends, Kalyanamitas, right? So this has been a huge drive for me of the last couple of years. This plan of being here in California was something actually I planned to do in 2020, but we all know what happened, right? So, you know, a couple of years ago, I realized I need to develop Kalyanamitas in the monastic life. So Kalyanamita means good friend. This is a person who supports you, who's a skillful person, very moral, good person, who supports you in doing the same. Right? So this is very important for anybody who's following the Noble Eightfold Path, not just monastics, lay people, everybody. But when you become a monastic, it becomes, in many ways, even more important, because the coming together and realizing, like, this is a hard path, being a monastic. It's not easy. And I kind of had that most of my life. I'm like, yeah, I'm a tough guy. I like, do survival in the woods. I can do things on my own and all these things. And like, it was like lots of years of kind of realizing, no, actually, I need help. Like, I actually need support, right? And so right now I'm kind of what I call an orphan nomad monk. Meaning I'm not really living in one place. I'm just kind of wandering around, staying here and there. And what I'm trying to do is to visit lots of different places and organizations, both bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, right, to develop Kalyanamitas. Kalyanamitas who are two types of Kalyanamitas. Kalyanamitas who are around my age, both biologically and vasa-wise, number of years as a monastic. So where I became a monastic at Bhavan Society in West Virginia, I'm 43 biologically. I'm 5 as a monastic, but I was around people who were way senior, both biologically and as a monastic. And, that's a very good thing, but it's also, there's a disconnect there, right? To have people around, like I had Cittananda, I consider like my first bhikkhuni, sister, my first bhikkhuni, Kalyanamita, right? For all those years that we met. And she invited me to come to both Ayas invited me to come visit KBV years and years ago, but now I'm here. And this is also, you know, plan to visit various monasteries and also to develop Kalyanamitas who are more senior to me, who I can, you know, depend on as guides and counselors and things like that. You know, people who, if I have a question, if I need somebody who has been, you know, a monastic for so long, and I can say, you know, Bhante or Ayya or whoever, you know, I have this issues, you know, can you give me any advice, etc. So that's kind of been the theme of the last couple of years in this Vasa as well. You know, this Vasa for me, I had an interesting balance of seclusion and Kalyanamita. I stayed with Ayya Tataloka at Dhammadipa in Aranyabodhi Hermitage. And so I had this kind of nice secluded area all the way up, you know, not in the Hermitage grounds by myself. So I had not nice seclusion, but then I would go down and then there'd be this community there, right? And I got to know some of the bhikkhunis and the residents and, you know, try to develop more Kalyanamitas. And, you know, I move on, you know, after this, I go to another place and I do the same thing and trying to observe how different monastics live and how they practice, how they hold this monastic form, and to develop myself, right? So I can grow up monastically wise to become a good senior monastic, you know, who can be a good Kalyanamita to junior monastics and other people as well. So that's my theme for what I'd like to share.
So Ajahn Yanukov, would you share on this topic, please?
Sure. You know, this is the first time I've actually been an abbot and been the senior monk in the monastery with Lompo Pasino and Ajahn Kurdadamo spending the Vasa at Pacific Hermitage, and they'll actually be back tomorrow. But this Vasa was really the first Vasa I guess I could say I felt like an abbot, which that's not really something I can describe, but that there was, yeah, and a lot of communal harmony in the Sangha. And I feel like at Abhayagiri here, we have a very strong team, and I don't just rely on myself, I rely on others. So I can't actually be an abbot without the Sangha here. I could go live on my own, but, you know, that's, I guess that wouldn't be being an abbot. Being an abbot is, there's a sense of leadership and learning things I never dreamed I would learn of as a layperson. Things like diplomacy, or, you know, when I joined up with the monastery, I didn't think I'd be learning things like time and place of saying the right thing at the right time, or just all these kind of leadership things. So I do think it does help me. It's good for me, this whole leadership thing. And it's been an interesting experiment so far. So we'll see how it goes when Lumpur comes back. But also there was a sense of timelessness, I think, that came up for a theme for me during this past Vasa, because the beginning of the Vasa seems like a long time ago, and there's so much that happened. Now it's raining, but now it's like there was fires, and just there was like seeing Lumpur off at the beginning of the Vasa, and him going to Pacific Hermitage, and then there was the entering the Vasa here, and there was the hot weather and the work projects that took place. We did a lot of forestry clearance here, but then there's that day-to-day, just the experience of being a monastic and being a bhikkhu, and it had there's this incredibly timeless quality to it. Bhikkhus in the time of the Buddha were doing work projects, just looking after things, looking after the facilities. There's a timeless quality to looking after our robes, to just having the meal out of our alms bowls. So within everything, there's just that being a monastic. And So the akaliko was a big theme for me.
Thank you, Ajahn. So Ayya Dhammadipa, please share your Vasa experience.
Well, can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, the theme of the Vasa this year was the recollection of the Buddha, study of the life of the Buddha. And I think that in particular through the lens of how I find my own path to awakening, and have this heart and mind be a refuge, a place of clarity, a place of sanity in a world that is quite confused. And how others can also do that, how my body, my heart, my mind can be a refuge for others as well. What does it mean to create a place of refuge? So I'm here, and as you mentioned earlier, I'm here in Alexandria, Virginia, and just beginning to establish and gather together a community, and connecting with old friends, meeting up with new friends, and really deeply appreciating the way that practice brings us into relationship, brings us over and over again into relationship, and that's always a learning, always a great learning. And so we'll be having our own hava, we'll be having our own gathering this coming Saturday, just a group of folks here, both in person and online. And you know, the name of the community came during the Vasa, this name of Dasanaya Buddhist community is the name. And it's that, for me, that's really speaks to it's for the purpose of seeing with the wisdom of Buddhism, with the wisdom of the Buddha and the wisdom of Buddhism in general. And that's why we come together as Buddhists, as community. So that's been my theme. My theme has been about that cultivating refuge internally, cultivating refuge externally. So yet another reason why I'm so happy to be here and share. Also because Ayya Cittananda and Ayya Santussika were the nuns, the bhikkhunis with whom I was probably in the most contact during the Vasa as well. So thank you so much for being great, Kalyanamita, for being a refuge.
Thank you, Ayya. Thank you. And Venerable Nisabho, how did it go?
Well, first, I'm aware that we've been sitting for a long time, so I'll try to keep it short. Yeah, so I think the "how does it go" references, I sort of landed in Seattle at the spring, early July, and just to see what would form. I was invited to stay in a hut behind 2 lay practitioners' homes, and I've been going to alms in Pike Place Market in front of the first Starbucks, which when I told Longpa Pasano, he said, it's like a pilgrimage. I was like, kind of. But it's interesting, we could have rented a spot very quickly for our gatherings, but we decided to really rely on generosity and see if a place would manifest. And it did. And there was a church offered us a space to meet. And one of the sermons that the pastor gave was on the story of the loaves and fishes in the Bible, which I didn't know, but it's the story that appears perhaps the most in the Bible, I think 7 times, as opposed to the crucifixion, which is twice or so. And the gist of it is that Jesus summons all the disciples and says that there will be enough to feed the whole group, and they're skeptical. And then there is, and the idea being that this mindset of that there's enough, like look to the feast. There's this harvest that is unseen when you open yourself to it and have faith. And I walked Tudong in Australia a few years ago, and the monk I was with had this dream before we went, where he was jumping off of a building, and at first he jumped off the top floor, and his parachute went out and he had time to slow down and land quietly. And then the next time he jumped from a floor down and his parachute barely got out in time. And then the final time he jumped from a lower floor and woke up. The idea being that sometimes the bigger jump is the safest because it means you're giving your faith entirely in something. And sometimes that's the only time you see how the Dharma will hold you if you give yourself to the world in that way. So I feel like I've been seeing that here. There's been some days on alms round where there wasn't enough, and I'd start walking back, and then some random guy with a box of protein bars would come out of an alley and give them to me. It was completely random and absurd. But I just wanted to recollect that what I see all of you doing down there, and both communities, Aloka Vihara, Karuna Buddhist Vihara, giving yourself so lovingly and selflessly to this path and to the community you've gathered, and just relying on faith for what will answer. And it's a joy to see that manifesting, and I'm so grateful to be an observer of it. So thank you very much. And for all who've gathered to support this thread of Dhamma, which the world needs so much right now.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, all of you. And Olivia, we want to do a little bit of chanting to celebrate all of this, and everyone can join in. Those who are here, the chant is in your program. It's the Buddha's Words on Loving. I think it's in your program. Maybe it's not in your program. Oops. Anyway, sing along. No. Okay, so.
Let us chant the Buddha's words on loving kindness.
This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. So with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world.
May you have every good blessing.
May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Buddhas, may you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Dhamma, may you ever be well. May you have every good blessing. May all the devas protect you. By the power of all the Sangha, may you ever be well.
Thank you. Be well, everyone. And Olivia, you have words of closing. I think you, Philip is going to say a little something to us, maybe. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. We'll pass it over to Philip.
Oh, thanks. This past summer, I got a call from my Cittananda asking if I can check the Santa Cruz area around the KBV Hermitage for places I can deliver water, like any source, whether it's the county water agency or just a retail store. And it was because the water spring that the Hermitage depended on had gone dry, and I oddly didn't sound panicked by the only source of water running out, but I started panicking because I was out of town and all I could do was call the places I can find on Google, and no one in the area was able to provide an ongoing supply of water. The Ayyas eventually were able to find a temporary sources to get by, per usual, with their resourcefulness, but it was a timely reminder that there's a lot we can do to build up the infrastructure at the Hermitage in order to give the Vihara a sustainable foundation. So that became the focus of this year's Katina. In addition to water, we're working towards building out roads and a bridge that'll open up more sites for kuti huts, utility vehicle, and solar energy. So thank you, everyone, whether you're a longtime supporter or someone who's recently joined our community, and we're all grateful. The updated total for this year's Katina is $23,708. Thanks, Olivia.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, and there's a slide there for just how to find KBV webpage if you don't know yet. And yeah, I think that officially closes the program. Huge thank you to all the monastics for sharing your Dhamma talks, your wisdom, and the personal practice was very inspiring. So yes, very grateful.
Bhante, did you sign us off?